Hello and welcome to a brand new video. In today's video we are looking at the Immortal NPC, an NPC in this game that cannot die. It is pretty much invincible. Every single time you hit this NPC it regenerates to 100% health. Don't mind me, just doing some fishing here with Neve while I do this intro. So this NPC is very strange. I'm going to tell you about it a wee bit before we jump over and show you what it is. I'm actually going to let you try to guess what it is because I think nobody will get it. So when this came into the game it was the highest combat NPC, which should be a very short list. You're probably thinking the strongest bosses in the game, and it was pretty strong, over 700 combat. It's a demon, which should make it a really short list, but yous are probably stumped. The highest demon yous can think of is probably Zami, you know, Krill from Zami God Wars. I think it's 650 combat, but there is one higher demon, but this other demon isn't even on the list of NPCs, or of bosses. It's not on the bestiary, is that what they call it? Yeah, this thing over in the wiki that shows all of the bosses in the game. It is not on here, yet it was at one point the strongest NPC in the game, and it's immortal, indestructible. You cannot kill this boss. So for any of you guys who have guessed it, congratulations. I know about 99% of you haven't, because I had no idea this thing existed. When Old School RuneScape was released, this was the strongest boss in the game and I'd never heard of it before. It is of course the Arzenian being of Bordazan. Now I'd never heard of this thing before. I've never done the quest where this being is found. It was 781 combat when it came into the game, but nobody fights it at level 781. Everybody weakens it to one of its other two forms before fighting it. But in this video we are going to be taking on the invincible form of it, and I've actually found some really cool stuff while fighting this boss. The other immortal beings in the game is like the boss and family crest. It won't die unless you hit it with 4 different blast spells, but it gives minus 90% XP, almost no XP when you attack it, and it's found in the wild, so that's not very useful at all. This thing is the complete opposite. It gives bonus XP when you attack it, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's jump over there and check this thing out. Before we jump over there, let me just show you a few things in the wiki here. Some of this is actually incorrect, the information, but when you go over to fight the being of Bordazan, it'll spawn one of 3 monsters. It says it works this out based on your combat stats and your equipment, but I tried wearing different equipment. I tried boosting down, brewing, tried loads of different things, but it always spawned the magic one. So we're going to focus this video on the magic one. If you had a different account that had higher range or higher mage than your melee stats, I think it would spawn the other two. I think it's based solely on your levels, on your stats, you know. But yeah, all I could get to spawn was the magic one. I'd love to test the range one because, as you can see over here, this thing's a demon. Arclight would completely shred it. It might be some of the highest XP in the game if you could just keep spawning the range one and you had an Arclight. But in this video we're going to focus on this here magic version. The wiki is quite interesting. It doesn't show any of the stats of this boss, but there's a good reason for that. You cannot use Monster Examine on this boss. Nobody can check the stats of it in game, which is pretty crazy. It also doesn't show the bonus XP, it just has a question mark there. But you can get a rough idea by looking at the weaker versions. They are really defensively tanky against melee, but weak to range, which is what you'd expect when you're fighting a mage. It also says the weaker version has bonus XP of 2.5%, which is pretty low, but it's better than 0, and it's definitely better than minus 90 from the other boss, you know. But this invincible version actually has extra bonus XP, so that's pretty cool. Let's jump in and fight this thing. So here it is, arguably the hardest boss in the game. Actually, there's no arguing about it. This thing is immortal. Nobody has ever defeated it in this form. It's invincible. Every single time you deal damage to it, it regenerates to full health. So the first thing I wanted to test when I came over here was how much damage a Ruby Bolt E special attack would hit. You know, if this thing had crazy high HP, you could hit 100s on it over and over. Unfortunately, it only has 200 HP, so Ruby Bolt E can only hit 40s. So I don't think using a crossbow or using bolts is the way to go. Blowpipe gives you way more XP per hour. Speaking of the XP, look at these XP drops versus the damage I'm doing. So whenever you deal damage to this boy, you should get 4 times for the range XP and 1.3 for the hit points XP, if that makes sense. You know, if you hit a 10, you should get 13 hit points XP and you should get 4 range XP, but as you can see there, it's a wee bit higher. I think the bonus XP in this dude is 5%, which is quite interesting if you look at this dude as a training method. He's quite weak as well. His max hit's only like 15 or something, but he's really inaccurate because he's mage and I'm wearing range gear. I thought if I brought this range gear in, it would spawn the melee version, but it didn't happen. It spawned the range again, which is quite strange. I have fought him once during the quest, but didn't finish him off because I wanted to go in and test this a few more times. So as I was saying, Blowpipe is much faster XP per hour over here, but I'm just going to show you guys how to get here. You want to take the ferry ring DKS and then you just head into the tunnel towards Kelgarim. Whenever you go in here, you pay this dude 2 GP to take the ferry, then you just run north. As long as you have your golden helmet on, the dwarf will shoot you through the wall. It's actually quite funny. Puts you in the cannon, fires you through the wall, and then it puts you in the instance where you can fight this dude. I'm not sure how it works after the quest, but during the quest it'll put you in there. What you're supposed to do in the quest, and what everybody does, is mines all these gold ore, and that puts it into one of the weaker versions before you go in to fight it. If you don't mine any gold ore, you go in here and then you get to fight the invincible version. So head in here with a blowpipe, and I actually messed up here. I've got a blowpipe, I'm using rigor, and I'll leave it at full health. I didn't look at this thing as a boss, I kind of look at it as a training method, but it's obviously a boss. It's got really high defense, later on lower its defense, and the XP per hour is crazy higher, you know, much higher than here. But the blowpipe was shredding it. Here you can see it barely misses, and I think the XP per hour just in this with Addy Darts is way over 100, and just trying to get himself in the video. Good timing, man. Yeah, if you're here with the blowpipe, you're looking at well over 100k XP per hour with Addy Darts. It went up to 155, but eventually it dropped down a wee bit. I think it evens out about 133, but what you need to take into account, or what you need to consider, every like 8 minutes you'll get kicked out of this place for your helmet getting too heavy. I'm not sure why that happens. Then you need to get the dwarf to fire you back through the wall to come in here, so you will lose about 30 seconds every 8 minutes. Kind of like rock crabs, you need to reset or re-aggro, you know, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So yeah, your XP per hour you need to take a tiny bit off the top. So think here with a blowpipe, without lowering its defense, will be about 128, maybe 130k XP per hour with rigor on the whole time. I don't know if people would train like that, but that is really good. That's up there with Nightmare Zone. I thought the range version would not be any good at all, because if you think about Nightmare Zone or something, you can use super range pots or overloads, and both of those potions are actually much stronger than the ones you can use outside, if any of you guys didn't know that. For melee it's the exact same as like super combats or divine potions or whatever, but for range you're much better off in Nightmare Zone. So I was very surprised to see this here being similar XP rates, if not even a wee bit higher at the minute, but once you leave and come back in, it'll even out and be about the same. I thought I'd show you this one first without lowering his defense with Addy Darts, just to show like the actual XP per hour, but then I went and swapped over to Rune Darts and lowered his defense to see what you could actually get, what the peak would be. I know nobody's going to train outside Nightmare Zone with Rune Darts, but I was just curious, you know, wanted to find out. So we headed back over here with Rune Darts and with the BGS to lower his defense, and have a look at this. So the two BGSs hit, they were quite low numbers though. I think we took minus 43 defense levels off him. I think he's up there in like 150 defense because he's going to be higher than the other versions, you know. So it's probably like 30% of his defense gone, and we were shredding him. We were getting over 150k XP per hour. It does go down and up a wee bit there, but it evens out about 155,000 range XP per hour, which is actually a tiny bit higher than what I was getting in Nightmare Zone in the exact same setup. So you can potentially get more XP per hour here, but it is not worth it. Don't get me wrong, Nightmare Zone's really AFK, really nice and easy to train over there, and the XP per hour is very close. Here he interrupts your combat a wee bit, so you have to click on him. But it is interesting, nobody's thought of this, and it is higher XP per hour than Nightmare Zone. But if you want to waste money on range, you can just chin and you can get way more XP per hour. So definitely not worth it for training here with range. But it is very interesting. I would love to try the melee version with an arc light. I think it would completely shred him. With him being a demon and you getting that bonus XP, you know, could be pretty crazy. It could be the best training spot in the game, and I don't think anybody's thought about it. Definitely not for range, although it is up there. And if you didn't have access to Nightmare Zone, for example in Twisted Leagues or something, this might actually be potentially one of the best training spots, which is quite interesting. Or maybe not. I think you need really high gear to actually be accurate in this dude, so maybe not. But yeah, what do you guys think? The immortal NPC, completely invincible, you cannot kill him, and you can just train on him for like 8 minutes and then have to reset. There was one other thing I wanted to show you guys. So this dude is a mage, he's really high magic level. If only there was a weapon in the game that shredded mages, you know, like a twisted bow. Unfortunately I can't afford a twisted bow, but there is some really awesome people in my CC. If any of you guys want a really cool clan to hang out with, highly recommend the dudes in my CC. Not me, just the other people in there are pretty cool. So yeah, I go to some of the boys here, Denny's have a twisted bow, hook me up, and one of the boys just like, yeah, no problem. Unfortunately I didn't have full money for collateral, you know, so chucked in everything I had, and a dude Ant from the CC chucked in another 100 mil, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that means you guys can see this clip with a twisted bow. Now there is a few things I need to tell you about this clip. I had to sell all of my armor to be able to afford this, all of my good range gear, and also didn't have a BGS to lower the defense. I didn't know that the twisted bow is quite strange, although it has a really high max hit on high magic monsters. It's also super inaccurate. If you don't have that really high range bonus, it's not that strong. So I head over here and tested it anyway, and I was slapping 55s. Now you'd be thinking if you're hitting 55s the XP per hour should be crazy, but it was actually really inaccurate. I don't know if it's because I wasn't lowering his defense, I didn't have the best in slot range gear, didn't have my Armadillo. Maybe it would be as quick as the blowpipe if you had all of that stuff going for you, but maybe it wouldn't. Maybe blowpipe is quicker than a T-bow and faster, more XP than a T-bow, which is pretty crazy given the price difference, you know. One's only like 3.9 mil and one's well over a bill, like over 1.1 bill for this thing. I was only getting like 110k range XP per hour. I don't think it's a fair comparison though. If you lower his defense, the T-bow might completely melt him. So what I'm going to do is make a wee bit more money, try to get my own T-bow, get full Armadillo and get a Bando's Godsword, come back out here and test it again. But yeah, a lot to think about, a very cool boss. I don't think it's the best for range, but I really want to test the melee version. If I can find an account that has higher magic than the melee stats and I can spawn him in, an account with an arc light, it might be the best XP in the game, and I'm not even joking with that. Demons give 70% bonus damage and accuracy to the arc light, so you could just completely shred this dude, and he's got unlimited health, so there's definitely some stuff to look at, some stuff to think about. I did try the arc light on this version, but his slash defense is just way too high, you're rarely hitting him, so yeah, definitely need to test that on the one that's weak to melee. Also tried a few other things. I tried bringing out full DH to here, and it didn't work. Like, if you take off this golden helmet, you get teleported out. The 8-minute thing as well, I tried to get around the 8-minute respawn we have to leave by making multiple of these gold helmets. It says you can't make one, but if you drop this one on the floor, make another one and then telegrab it, then you have two. And then I tried to come in and just switch the hat while I was in here, you know, to reset the 8-minute timer, but that doesn't work. It teleports you straight out as well. So yeah, lots of things I've tried in this video. Really cool boss. There's definitely a load of stuff that still needs to be tested. But anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I will catch all yous in the next video very soon. Take it easy. Bye.